This is a very interesting interview on X right now. This is between Michelle Tofoya and Mike Benz. This answers the question why Elon Musk is being vilified, is under attack, why free speech is highly under attack today, and what are some things we need to understand. And I will recommend the entire thing, but we're gonna react to about 8 minutes of this video today, get some of the content in our system, and then I'll share my thoughts at the end.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michelle Tafoya podcast. Elon Musk said, what? GFY? It was a big old GFY. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what he said. If you don't know, you've got to stay tuned. Mike Benz has a response. He is knowledgeable about all things cyber, online censorship, all the rest. This guy's pretty brilliant. You're going to want to hear it, and you're going to want to hear Elon Musk say it. We'll play it for you next.
It's time for the Michelle Tafoya podcast.
Let's welcome Mike Benz. You can find him at Mike Benz, B-E-N-Z, Cyber, all one term, on X, where you were last night pontificating, just giving this great response to Elon Musk, which we'll get to in a minute. Mike, I want our audience to understand your background precisely from your point of view, because you do comment on all things cyber. Give us a little sense of what your professional background has looked like.
Sure. So I started off as a corporate attorney, mostly representing technology firms and finance, and then I moved into government during the Trump administration. I was a speechwriter for Secretary Dr. Ben Carson at HUD, and I advised on economic policy there. I was called up to the White House to be a speechwriter for President Donald Trump, and then from there, my portfolio on the comms side was talking about foreign policy, national security, and technology, and I worked very closely with the NSC folks there, the National Security Council folks, and I had been very attuned to issues of internet censorship for several years before that. It had been something I was writing a book on, and was doing a documentary on, and it sort of consumed everything around my life for the years, both as an attorney and working for the Trump administration, and then an opportunity opened up to join the State Department from the White House and be essentially in the diplomat role, formulating and negotiating U.S. foreign policy on internet issues, which basically has its own department within the Economic Bureau. And so I sort of saw up close and personal on inside, outside, and sideways all forms of relationships between the government and the private sector when it comes to control over speech on the internet. And so when my time in government ended, I created the foundation I now run, which is Foundation for Freedom Online.
You can find it foundationforfreedomonline.com, and you should check it out. It's amazing. Now, people are automatically going to say, Mike Benz, you work for Trump. I'm tuning out, because there are the never Trumpers, the people who think that anyone associated with Trump must be bad. To them, you say what, Mike?
This is so much bigger than Trump. I mean, you're talking about something that is completely existential to the soul of Western civilization, the right to open your mouth and to let sounds come out of your vocal cords. I mean, that's basically what this is about. And the thing that has differentiated this country from every other country on the planet, our First Amendment, is under a crisis renegotiation right now. And I should say, I don't consider this to be a partisan thing at all. The story that I try to tell people here and try to install in people's brains is that the story of internet censorship is not a story of Republican versus Democrat. It's not a story of conservative versus liberal. It's a story of the foreign policy establishment against domestic populism. That is people and institutions whose interests are in the broader American empire versus those who live in the American homeland. And for this reason, the censorship industry is actually targeted left-wing, anti-war, anti-NATO, and foreign policy heterodox voices.
This is massive. So, oftentimes when we're looking at the censorship issue, we look at it from left and right only. And that was wrong. I've looked at it that way myself, and I'm realizing, wait, this is worse. This is worse. And that's what I said in my last video. This is an attack, not just on our free speech. It's an attack on the Bible. It's an attack on God. It's an attack on the gospel. Okay. Why is this such a massive thing? This is everything else who are determined to control all these systems outside of this country, outside of the faith, and their goal is to control the voice of the populace, the voice of the people, the people who has the bullhorn, the people on the internet, even the ministers, those who are telling the truth, right, about anything that they do not agree with, whether it is climate change, whether it's abortion, whatever it is, the discussion might be about politics, Donald Trump, Jesus Christ. There is a system in place that is against that. So that's why it's such a massive thing, and I'm really glad he's establishing this.
Not as much as right-wing voices, but that's only because they haven't achieved the same level of political power. If Bernie Sanders had won the 2016 election, I mean, you saw what they did to him when he even floated the idea of running against Joe Biden in the 2020 election. They tried to Russiagate thing on him. But they did the same thing to Jeremy Corbyn in the UK Labour Party left. It's really not about left or right. It's really about money, frankly, to these people. And whoever gets in the way of that as an organized political movement will be targeted by the state.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
Well, when we talk about money and we talk about power, there's no better figure to focus on than Elon Musk. He has a lot of money, and therefore he has a good amount of power. And he's using it in a way that is really fascinating to me. And he's become a polarizing figure because of it. Now, yesterday, he was being interviewed, and the one of the most epic things I've ever seen. And it's, again, I think it's polarizing, but he'd been accused of saying something or agreeing with something that many people thought was anti-Semitic. Then he made a trip to Israel. People suggested that was an apology tour. And now he's seeing places like Disney boycott X and say, we're not going to advertise on X. We're stopping that for a time at least. And so he was asked about this yesterday. We're going to play this audio. We had to bleep it. But we're going to play it, and we're going to get your response, because online last night you gave something like a little mini masterclass on this. So let's play this soundbite that has been, I know, played umpteen times today, but let's play it umpteen and one.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself. But go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
A little hey to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, if you're in the audience. It was, talk about, sorry for this offensive one, talk about balls. Talk about cojones. I don't care if you find that distasteful. It's what it was. So, why?
Yeah, Elon Musk just did something no other businessmen have been able to do in the past. He kind of gave them the middle finger. He just said to the ideologues, go blank yourself, go screw yourself, because people's freedom of speech is more important to me than your money. And if you think about it, here are a bunch of businessmen manipulated with ulterior motive to control the freedom of conscience we now enjoy in this country. These businessmen are saying, because of the way I feel about this or that, you cannot have an opinion about it. And it's kind of like wild, because it's like, you serious? But that's kind of what is being pushed forward here. You're supposed to be selling certain products, but instead of doing that, you become the conscience of the people, or else you will not put your ad in these different parts. So Elon Musk is one of the few who stepped up and said, go blank yourself, go screw yourself. We're going to have a discussion on these platforms, whether you support us or not. And I really hope that other businesses will sideline with Elon Musk and push X forward and make it a platform. And I think if more businessmen will stand up and do what Elon Musk just did, the censorship gurus and censorship lords will not have been as powerful as they are. Anyway, let's keep going.
Find that distasteful. It's what it was. So why? Elon also said, if you boycott, you're going to kill my company. But go ahead and bring it on. What is he trying to achieve right now?
Well, the company is stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to having to deal with the weaponized economics of sort of political boycott campaigns versus the principle of free speech. And this has been something that has been the Achilles heel of protection of freedom of speech online for at least 6 or 7 years now. This is, there's a long history of ad boycotts being used to change the terms of service policies of speech platforms to kill populist political sentiment or citizen opposition to.
Brace yourself now, because he's gonna go into some stuff. He's gonna show you underlying causes, the actual underlying causes. What are these things that are causing these companies to do it? Now, he's bigger than control now. There's also power, okay? There's also power. Watch this. And Donald Trump is one of those figures you really need to pay attention to. That's why he's such an important figure. It's such an important figure. It's not just Republican, Democrats, conservative. No, 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 no. Trump is one of those figures you got to understand, because he represents the masses of the people. He represents the populace. He represents the people who just want to live their lives and be left alone from government control. That's what Trump represents. He's the figurehead of that movement. And this is why he's such a problem to them, okay? So watch what they've been trying to do to Donald Trump.
To government initiatives. So, some of this goes back to, as soon as Trump was elected in 2016, very quickly after that, actually immediately after that, in January 2017, this is 2 weeks before Trump was actually inaugurated. So he'd won, but he had not yet been sworn into office. David Brock, who's the head of Media Matters, founder of it, he organized about 120 tech titans and investors from affiliated with the DNC to come up with a plan to force social media companies to censor. At the time, it was just pro-Trump voices online, because David Brock, he's got this long history as a political hitman in Washington. He started off as a conservative sort of hitman operative, and then he migrated over to the Hillary Clinton side. And they did an autopsy of the 2016 election about why they lost. And they said, how did we lose this? Trump didn't get a single newspaper mainstream media endorsement. There wasn't the media coverage was 95-5 against him. Even Fox News, which is the typical Republican home base, was highly torn. It didn't have laudatory coverage of him. How do we lose to this guy? And David Brock did this assessment because he had run a super PAC trying to artificially inflate Hillary Clinton's popularity online, only to find it got crushed by just organic sentiment, often even from anonymous.
I wonder who those organic sentiments are. Anonymous accounts. I wonder who they are. I wonder who they are.
To find it got crushed by just organic sentiment, often even from anonymous accounts online. And the assessment was this was an internet election, and we lost because of free speech on the internet. And if we're ever going to win elections again, we need to control populist impulses online. And they came up with a plan around importing this ad boycotting strategy that they had used against Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly in the analog TV era. And then they brought some hitchhikers along from the Pentagon and the State Department and the CIA and the National Endowment for Democracy. The national security state had a vested interest in getting rid of Trumpism. Now, it's again, I call it Trumpism here, but this is a bipartisan, nonpartisan thing. Bernie Sanders wanted to scale back NATO, wanted to cut back on defense spending to pay for universal health care and universal free college. That's why they hated Bernie Sanders. Again, the same thing when it comes to the populist right and left in Europe. NATO was terrified at the time that after Brexit, which was sort of fueled by this populist energy, Frexit was going to happen in France. And France was going to break out of the EU. And Italexit in Italy, and Grexit in Germany, and Grexit in Greece, and Spexit in Spain. The whole EU was going to come apart. That meant NATO was going to come apart. That meant there would be no enforcement for the tens of billions of dollars of debt the IMF is the creditor for. The whole rules-based international order would collapse if people were free to post their opinions online. So it became a national security issue to censor the internet in the eyes of these longtime apex predators of the national security state. And they teamed up with the Media Matters crew from the DNC and with the sort of Michael V. Hayden, John McCain, Dick Cheney sort of neocon right to create this uniparty blob censorship apparatus that was mostly designed to kill ad revenue, because the Chamber of Commerce, which represents basically all of our blue chip multinational companies, depends on the battering ram of the Pentagon and the State Department and the CIA and all the NGO swarm that's pumped up by our government to secure and protect their foreign investments. That's the reason that we have such global dominance. It's not just because we provide the best products. It's because we ensure foreign governments aren't able to prop up their own. That they're not nationalistic to box out our own companies. This is one of the failures that they perceive in China. That China did create that firewall. The government protects our businesses abroad, so our businesses are dependent on the government. So when government operatives, political operatives, can weaponize government support to say, hey, company, don't advertise on this platform because they're promoting disinformation, whatever the predicate of the day is. But it's just a proxy for they're allowing the free speech of political opposition parties that we oppose. They have a tremendous amount of leverage to do that. And they did that early on. I mean, really right out the gate after the Trump election. And so just to tie it all together, Musk's, GFY statement there is really the first time in the 7-year crusade that these people have been on that someone has said straight to their face, no friggin' way, the buck stops here, you're gonna have to kill me.
I gotta stop this interview. This is too good. I'll put a link in the description below. You need to go finish this thing yourself. Guys, he said so much. Tell you what, we are experiencing the nature of this beast, okay? I'm feeling the breath of the dragon, okay? These draconian laws, listen, man, I know so many YouTubers whose channels has been canceled, removed, demonetized. I myself been demonetized for like 2 months now. We still are given a reason why. We don't know. We don't know. There was not one particular video. We weren't told what was said that was wrong. None of that. It was just because I was talking a number of things. I was sharing my opinion. I was calling out a few things. Yeah. And that's all it takes. Ad revenues, gone. YouTube, gone. I mean, it's crazy. They allow the speech that they want to allow on the platform and remove the things that they want to remove. Friends, we are in a cultural war. Much more, we are in a spiritual war. It's a war over words. It's over words. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Sit tight. Let me open my scripture here because I'm done. I can't tell you anymore. This was too hot. I can't keep running with this. I gotta go finish this on my end. He was on fire. Mike Benz is on fire, and I need to listen more to his content. Did you know in the Bible, when the war began in heaven, what this war was about? There was war in heaven. You see this little text right here? All right. What was this war about? It was a war of political war. You say, what? Luke, I'm giving you a homework. Go in your Bible concordance, go and look up the word war. You're going to come with the word politics. Politics. And what you're going to find is Lucifer began to use words to change the minds of the angels to get them on his side so that he can oppose God. Tell you, I don't want to stop preaching. There's a lot already in this. As it was then, so it is today. We are seeing in the political realm, we get a sense of what's happening in the spiritual realm. What's happening in politics is a little tidbits of what's happening in the spiritual world. The devil is using words to control. But you know what God is also using? The word. The word was made flesh and dwell among us. There is a fight over words, whose words is going to be allowed to be spoken or not. But I tell you what, God's word will always win. In the Psalmist 81 verse 10, let me put that on my screen. I'm going to be gracious enough to share that one with you. You need to see it yourself. Psalms 81, verse 10. Let's go there. Let's go there. It won't hurt. It won't hurt. 81 verse 10. What should we do when they are telling us we shouldn't speak our mouth and we shouldn't say anything? Well, listen, I am the Lord which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide and I will fill it. So what should I do when they say, Pastor James, stop talking about these issues. Open your mouth. What should you do when they censor your channel? What should you do when they say don't speak? What should you do? No, you keep opening your mouth. You keep on talking. Now, you may have to learn how to do it in a way that won't get you, you know what I'm saying, unalived. Because it looks like the next thing in, because listen, you think they can stop the truth from going forward? It is impossible. Whichever sphere you look at it, it cannot be stopped because the truth will always break through. The truth always overcomes. But now, until then, we're going to keep on fighting, wrestling, and warring. I just wanted to share that with you. Elon Musk is on point. Pray for this man. If you're a Bible-believing Christian, pray for this man. Pray for this man. And pray for any other with the cojones and the guts and the heart to speak their mind. Pray for Donald Trump because he represents everything that is antithetical to that system, that draconian system. Trump stands against it. It's bigger than Trump. And pray for me. Have a good one. I love you. Bye.